გადაცემის წამდგენია კომპანია კნაოფი. ვაშენოთ ერთად.
გადაცემის სპონსორია კომფორტისა და ინოვაციების ეკოსისტემა ბუდე პლუსი. მოიწვე მზრუნველი სახლი და დაიმუხტე სიმყუდროვის ელემენტებით.
ლამაზი, მყუდრო, კომფორტული სახლი ყველას გვინდა. ჩვენთან ერთად თბილისის და არა მხოლოდ ძალიან ლამაზ და რასაც სწორედ დაგეგმილ სივრცეებს ნახავთ. საუკეთესო დიზაინერებს გაგაცნობთ და თქვენი ფანტაზია აუცილებლად რეალობად იქცევა. გამოვყევით შესანიშნავი გემოვნების, ლამაზი ნივთების, დახვეწილი დიზაინის სამყაროში. ერთად მოვიფიქროთ, როგორი სახლი გვინდა ჩვენ.
BMG-ს გუნდი ქოქავს თქვენთვის საქმიან დილას.
თქვენ უყურებთ ანალიტიკას, მე ამ გადაცემის ავტორი ელენე კვანჭილაშვილი ვარ.
BMG-ს გუნდი წარმოგიდგენთ საქმის კურსს.
უძრავი ქონების პროსპექტს ვიწყებთ.
ეს საქმიანი საღამო. გადაცემა ბიზნესზე, ეკონომიკაზე და გეოპოლიტიკაზე.
BMG TV-ზე წერტილის დროა.
გადაცემის წარმოდგენია ალიანს ჯგუფი. როგორ ვითარდება ქვეყნის ეკონომიკის ერთ-ერთი მთავარი სექტორი? რა ახდენს გავლენას ფაცებსა და მოთხოვნაზე? რამდენად იცავენ უსაფრთხოების სტანდარტებს სამშენებლო და დეველოპერული კომპანიები და რას უნდა მიაქციოთ ყურადღება უძრავ ქონებაში ინვესტირებამდე? ყოველ სამშაბათს 5-ის 5 წუთზე BMG TV-ს პირდაპირ ეთერში მოგიყვებით ყველაფერს, რაც უძრავი ქონების ბაზარზე აქტუალურია. უძრავი ქონების პროსპექტი თათია ჩაფიჩაძესთან და გუგა კობახიძესთან ერთად. გადაცემის წარმოდგენია ალიანს ჯგუფი. BMG-ს გუნდი ქოქავს თქვენთვის საქმიან დილას.
თქვენ უყურებთ ანალიტიკას, მე ამ გადაცემის ავტორი ელენე კვანჭილაშვილი ვარ.
BMG-ს გუნდი წარმოგიდგენთ საქმის კურსს.
უძრავი ქონების პროსპექტს ვიწყებთ.
ეს საქმიანი საღამო. გადაცემა ბიზნესზე, ეკონომიკაზე და გეოპოლიტიკაზე.
BMG TV-ზე წერტილის დროა.
უახლესი კვლევები, ინოვაციური დიაგნოსტიკა, მკურნალობის თანამედროვე მეთოდები და ტექნოლოგიები, რომლებიც ძირეულად ცვლის ჩვენს ცოდნას ჯანმრთელობის შესახებ. მტკიცებულებებზე დაფუძნებული მედიცინა მარტივად და პროფესიონალურად. ნინი ჯალაბაძე და ლევან ალავიძე გიზიარებენ ყველაფერს, რაც შენი ჯანმრთელობისთვის მნიშვნელოვანია. ყოველ კვირას 19 საათსა და 30 წუთზე მეცკრიპტუმი, შენი სანდო კავშირი მსოფლიო მედიცინასთან.
სახელმწიფო უსაფრთხოების სამსახურის სასწავლო ცენტრი რეფორმის ფარგლებში სახელმწიფო უსაფრთხოების აკადემია ჩამოყალიბდა. სუსისი ინფორმაციით უმაღლესი საგანმანათლებლო დაწესებულების სტატუსის მინიჭების შემდეგ აკადემია ერთწლიან სამაგისტრო პროგრამას განახორციელებს. უწყების ცნობითვე სახელმწიფო უსაფრთხოების აკადემიის სამაგისტრო პროგრამა მიზნად ისახავს მაღალკვალიფიციური სპეციალისტების მომზადებას. პროგრამაზე სწავლის უფლების მოპოვება შეიძლება ბაკალავრის ან მასთან გათანაბრებული აკადემიური ხარისხის მქონე პირებს. საერთო სამაგისტრო გამოცდების შედეგებისა და აკადემიის მიერ განსაზღვრული შიდა გამოცდის საფუძველზე სწავლა უფასო იქნება. ირანის პარლამენტის სპიკერის მუჰამედ ბაყერ ყალიბაფის განცხადებით, თეირანი იმ ევროპული ქვეყნების შეერაღებულ ძალებს, რომლებიც ისლამური რევოლუციის გუშაგთა კორპუსი ტერორისტულ ორგანიზაციად გამოაცხადეს, თავად მიიჩნევს ტერორისტულ დაჯგუფებად. ამის შესახებ ყალიბაფმა დღეს პარლამენტის სხდომაზე განაცხადა, სადაც დეპუტატები მხარდაჭერის ნიშნად გუშაგთა კორპუსის ფორმებში იყვნენ გამოწყობილები. გრენლანდიასთან დაკავშირებით ფაქტობრივად შევთანხმდით. ამის შესახებ ამერიკის პრეზიდენტმა დონალდ ტრამპმა ჟურნალისტებს Air Force One-ის ბორტზე განაცხადა. ამერიკის პრეზიდენტის განცხადებით ევროპას გრენლანდიასთან დაკავშირებით შეთანხმების მიღწევა სურს. მოლაპარაკებები დავიწყეთ და ფაქტობრივად შეთანხმება მიღწეულია. მათ სურთ, რომ ეს გავაკეთოთ. ვფიქრობ, ყველასთვის კარგი შეთანხმება იქნება, აცხადებს ტრამპი.
ბოლო 5 წლეულის განმავლობაში მონაცემთა ცენტრებისა და ხელოვნური ინტელექტის ჩიპების გლობალურ ბაზარზე ძალთა გადანაწილება კარდინალურად შეიცვალა. Bloomberg-ისა და ტექნოლოგიური გიგანტების NVIDIA-ს, Intel-ისა და AMD-ის ფინანსური ანგარიშგებების ანალიზი აჩვენებს, რომ ინდუსტრია სტრუქტურულად გარდაიქმნა. თუ 2021 წლის დასაწყისში სექტორის უპირობო ლიდერი Intel იყო, დღევანდელი რეალობა განსხვავებულია და დომინანტურ პოზიციას NVIDIA იკავებს. კიდევ უფრო დეტალურად რომ ჩავშავთ, 10 წლეულის დასაწყისში Intel-ის სეგმენტის შემოსავლების 2/3-ზე მეტს, კერძოდ 78%-ს აკონტროლებდა. იმ პერიოდში NVIDIA, რომელიც ძირითადად გეიმინგ ინდუსტრიისთვის განკუთვნილი გრაფიკული პროცესორებით იყო ცნობილი, ბაზრის მხოლოდ 25%-ს ფლობდა, ხოლო AMD მესამე პოზიციაზე იყო 7%-იანი მაჩვენებლით. თუმცა 2022 წლის მიწურულს OpenAI-ის მიერ ChatGPT-ის გამოშვებამ ტექნოლოგიურ სამყაროში გარდატეხა მოახდინა. ხელოვნური ინტელექტის ჩატბოტების ვირუსულმა გავრცელებამ და მსხვილი ტექნოლოგიური კომპანიებისა და მთავრობების მიერ AI ქარხნების დიდი ენობრივი მოდელების დასატრენინგებლად განკუთვნილი მონაცემთა ცენტრების მშენებლობის დაჩქარებამ მოთხოვნა GPU-ზე დაფუძნებულ ინფრასტრუქტურაზე საგრძნობლად გაზარდა. სწორედ ეს ცვლილება აღმოჩნდა NVIDIA-სთვის გადამწყვეტი, რომელმაც 2021 წლიდან მოყოლებული ბაზრის წილის გეომეტრიული პროგრესიით ზრდა შეძლო და 2025 წლის ბოლოსთვის სექტორის 86%-ს დაეუფლა. კომპანიის წარმატება არამხოლოდ გრაფიკული პროცესორების სისწრაფისა და ენერგოეფექტურობის გაუმჯობესებამ, არამედ მთლიანი სისტემური მიდგომის დანერგვამ განაპირობა. NVIDIA-ს გენერალური დირექტორი ჯენსენ ჰუანგი აღნიშნავს, რომ მაშინ, როცა ტრადიციული პროცესორებისთვის მურის კანონის მოქმედება შენელდა, მათი AI გამოთვლითი სიმძლავრეები ყოველწლიურად პრაქტიკულად ორმაგდება. კომპანიამ შექმნა სრული ეკოსისტემა, რომელიც აერთიანებს არქიტექტურას, ჩიპებს, სისტემებს, ბიბლიოთეკებსა და ალგორითმებს, რითაც კონკურენტებისთვის მაღალი ბარიერი დააწესა და მომხმარებლისთვის პლატფორმის შეცვლა გაართულა. საპირისპირო ტენდენცია გამოიკვეთა Intel-ის შემთხვევაში, რომლის წილით 78%-დან კატასტროფულ ნიშნულამდე 6%-მდე დაეცა. კომპანიის მარცხი ძირითადად განაპირობა ცენტრალურ პროცესორებზე ზედმეტმა ფოკუსირებამ იმ ფონზე, როცა ბაზარი მასობრივად გადაერთო GPU-ზე დაფუძნებულ სისტემებზე. გარდა ამისა, Intel-მა ვერ შეძლო AI აქსელერატორების წარმოების დროული მასშტაბირება და ახალი ჩიპების გამოშვების პროცესი არაერთხელ გააჭიანურა. მენეჯმენტს 2024 წლისთვის დაგეგმილი $500 მილიონი ოდენობის შემოსავლის მიზნობრივი მაჩვენებლის გაუქმებაც კი მოუწია, რაც პროგრამულ უზრუნველყოფასთან დაკავშირებულმა პრობლემებმა გამოიწვია. შედეგად Intel მონაცემთა ცენტრების დანახარჯების ყველაზე სწრაფად მზარდი სეგმენტის მიღმა აღმოჩნდა. NVIDIA-მ კი ბაზარზე ერთპიროვნული ლიდერობა მოიპოვა და პლანეტის უმდიდრესი კომპანია გახდა $4 ტრილიონ 500 მილიარდი საბაზრო კაპიტალიზაციით.
BMG-ის გუნდი ქოქავს თქვენთვის საქმიან დილას.
თქვენ უყურებთ ანალიტიკას, მე ამ გადაცემის ავტორი ელენე კვანჭილაშვილი ვარ.
BMG-ის გუნდი წარმოგიდგენთ საქმის კურსს.
უძრავი ქონების პროსპექტს ვიწყებთ.
ეს საქმიანი საღამო. გადაცემა ბიზნესზე, ეკონომიკაზე და გეოპოლიტიკაზე.
BMG TV-ს და წერტილის დროა.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
On January 25th, a new modern, large-scale meat processing plant of Nicora was officially opened with its technological capabilities and infrastructure. The facility is unique, not only in the region, but also in Eastern Europe. An investment of 45 million Georgian lari was made in the new plant. As a result of its commissioning, production will increase by nearly 2.5 times, and additionally, 150 jobs will be created. The government of Georgia issued $500 million worth of Eurobonds on the London Stock Exchange with a coupon rate fixed at 5.125%. Demand from international investors for Georgian securities reached up to $2.8 billion, exceeding the offered amount by 5.5 times. More than 100 international investors participated directly in the transaction. According to Geostat preliminary estimates, in December 2025, real GDP growth amounted to 7.2% compared to the same period of the previous year, while average real growth in 2025 was 7.5%. Several economic and financial indicators from last year were presented. For example, Georgia's electricity exports and related revenues were halved compared to the previous year, while according to update data, banks' profits in Georgia exceeded 3.3 billion Georgian lari. Last week, former Deputy Minister of Health Ilia Gudashavuri was detained and released after several hours following negotiations. He is accused of causing damage exceeding 2 million Georgian lari, while bail was set at 500,000 Georgian lari. The decision was made by what is described as the most human and fair court in the world. His colleague has already been detained. I'm talking about the Ministry of Defense is still demanding nearly 70 million compensation from its former minister Juansher Burjuladze, who is currently within the penitentiary system. Meanwhile, members of the Communications Commission elected Goga Gulordava as a chairperson for a 3-year term. It should be recalled that over the past 12 years, the commission was headed by Kaha Bekauri, who was last seen by the public at a government commissioning meeting in the capacity of a shareholder of the company Two Steps. The government of Georgia has completed its work and consultations with businesses within the framework of the governmental commission established due to high prices in Georgia. Following meetings with oil product companies, the study of prices will now be continued by the Parliamentary Prices Commission. The commission will be chaired by Shota Berekashvili. It will examine prices of good products, fast-moving consumer goods, medicines and fuel. By the end of April, a final political decisions will be announced, authored by the government of Georgia and approved by the Parliament of Georgia. At the initiative of the ruling party, legislative amendments have been prepared regarding the public political activities of business entities. Under the changes, if an entrepreneur engages in public political activity that is not related to their core business activities, they will be fined. The fine will be 2,000 Georgian lari for the first offense and 40,000 Georgian lari for a repeated offense. Through these and other amendments, the ruling party has already submitted draft laws to Parliament. The government has approved the national concept for reform of the general education system. The document is signed by the Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze. It outlines the priorities upon which the national goals of general education should be based, including the preservation of national identity and cultural authenticity. A few days after the publication of the document, the government announced the merger of the Georgian Technical University with the Tbilisi State University.
This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Kwanchilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up business and economics week for you. The government of Georgia successfully issued Eurobonds in the amount of $500 million on the London Stock Exchange, with the coupon rate set at 5.125%. This issuance sets a new benchmark for the Eurobond market, representing the lowest coupon rate among Eurobonds issued by countries with a credit rating comparable to Georgia's, as well as by countries with a one-notch higher credit rating over the past 4 years. The newly issued Eurobonds were used to refinance the 2021 Eurobonds. Beyond raising financial resources, the new issuance is important for two reasons. It establishes the country's risk level and measures international investors' interest and confidence in the country and its economy. The Eurobonds issued by the government of Georgia were successful in both directions. Specifically, the country's risk level declined by more than 50 basis points, or over 25%, while demand from international investors for Georgian securities reached a record high of $2.8 billion, which is 5.5 times the amount offered in the market. In total, more than 100 international investors participated directly in the transaction. The fact that international investors from the Americas, Europe, and Asia perceive Georgia as significantly less risky and are willing to invest $2.8 billion in Georgian securities indicates very high interest and confidence in the Georgian government's reforms and its fiscal and economic policies. Ministry of Finance believes through issuing securities on international market, Georgia is expected to become more active in the future, not only in Eurobonds, but also in other markets. During investor meetings, strong interest was observed in securities denominated in lari. National Bank of Georgia President Natia Turnava says international investors have strong confidence in Georgia's economy and government policy. She made the remarks following the successful placement of $500 million Eurobonds on the London Stock Exchange. According to Turnava, reduced risk levels played a key role in securing favorable terms. She noted that Georgia's sovereign risk appears lower to investors today compared to 2021 when the Eurobonds were first issued, and this improvement is reflected in the coupon rate. Turnava highlighted that investors trust Georgia's economic development trajectory, government policies, and the stable environment maintained in the country despite significant regional challenges. She emphasized that these factors collectively strengthened investor confidence. The new Eurobond issuance was used to refinance the 2021 bonds, completing the $500 million placement with strong market interest. More on business this week from our reporter Natia Taktakishvili.
Hotel Ambassador Godardzi has opened a new building for the current winter season, adding 89 rooms as spa, pool, restaurant, bar, gym, conference rooms, and children's area. After the latest investment, the hotel in Mountain Sajara can now host up to 450 guests at once. General Manager Keti Chigoshvili says the expansion was driven by the rapidly growing demand. According to her, interest in the resort and prices continued to rise. Last year, room price made up $100 USD. This year it grew up to $300 USD, reflecting very high demand, she said. According to Chigoshvili, visitor number have sharply increased compared to the last year, as in January last year the hotel hosted around 4,500 guests, while this January the figure reached 7,000. Most visitors are Georgians, but the resort is becoming increasingly popular among Europeans, especially Austrians and Germans, attracted by affordable prices and high quality snow. European group bookings have doubled year over year. Summer is no longer considered low season for the hotel. Last August saw the occupancy as January around 4,000 guests, setting a new record. The average stay is 3 or 5 nights, and weekend traffic is also rising. Chigoshvili notes that despite strong performances, the resort still needs more promotion and year-round activities. Road access from Tbilisi remains a challenge in winter, and additional infrastructure and marketing support would help boost visibility. We try to promote the resort both locally and internationally, but broader advertising and involvement from tourist authorities is essential, she told BMDG. Nikora has opened a new fully automated meat production plant built with a 45 million lari investing, covering 6,000 square meters. The facility is now the largest meat processing factory in the South Caucasus and is equipped with advanced energy efficient machinery, rooftop solar panels supplying about 20% of its power. According to General Director Irakli Bokolishvili, the factory represents a new benchmark for the region. This is the latest word in technology. If such an ultra-modern plant exists in Eastern Europe, perhaps there are only 1 or 2. It can serve as a business card for Georgia for anyone who understands meat production, he said. A new facility enables the company to expand its assortment, especially in the premium segment. Nikora now can produce up to 30 tons of products monthly. Bokolishvili also announced that Nikora will launch ready-to-eat meals this spring in a newly reconstructed 2,000 square meter production space. Equipment has already been delivered and operations are expected to begin in May or June, Bokolishvili said. Patient awareness around plastic surgery is increasing, according to Salome Svanadze, head of the surgical department at Jordania Medical Center. She says the industry is shifting toward natural results, supported by modern technologies, all of which are now available and actively used in Georgia. Svanadze notes that patients are no longer looking for individual procedures like liposuction, but for a comprehensive, personalized approach that helps them regain their natural, harmonious body shape. This shift is driving the sector toward multidisciplinary care and more holistic treatment models. The clinic places strong emphasis on the communication and psychology support, ensuring patients feel understood throughout the process. A patient is not just a medical history. They have their own story and require continuous professional guidance, Svanadze said. In terms of pricing, complex plastic surgery packages at the current range from 15,000 to 30,000 lari in 2026. According to Svanadze, the clinic's individualized philosophy is also attracting international clients, including patients from the United States, who seek results that meet their expectations. Revaz Vashakidze, founder and managing partner of poultry producer Chirina, says that every producer who attended the government's price commission meeting raised various concerns, making the discussion complex. According to him, the government's main goal is to address all these issues before making any decision. At this stage, however, he sees little room for reducing prices in poultry products, despite the company's own interest in selling more at lower prices. Vashakidze is skeptical that the government can meaningfully reduce food prices in the short term. He urges that any rapid price cuts would not reflect healthy economic processes. In his view, the issue is far more complex than it appears. It requires long-term structural changes, including industrial-scale production and targeted legislative reforms. He also recalled past regulatory decisions, such as Tbilisi City Hall removing Chirina's sales booth in 2019, which forced new investments and directly increased product prices. As a long-term solution, Vashakidze proposes regulating supermarket meat departments by law so that producers can supply products directly instead of maintaining separate retail points. Currently, 95% of Chirina's products are sold through his own network and only 5% goes to Carrefour. He also urges that local production remains expensive because of small-scale operations and the government's overly tolerant approach to imports. Bidina Gonashvili, CEO of Joint Stock Company, stated after a meeting of the price commission with producers that the issue of food prices is complex, involving producers, local manufacturing, distribution and retail chains. He emphasized that it's difficult to pinpoint a single cause due to the complex nature of the problem. The problem is complex. It exists on the producer's side, local production, distribution, and retail, making it very difficult to isolate one issue, Gonashvili said. According to him, the solution lies in coordinated actions. The way forward is for everyone to act together, agree on certain decisions, and implement price reduction accordingly. Regarding meat producers, Gonashvili noted that reducing prices depends on the development of local production. He also highlighted distribution costs and the relatively small market scale in Georgia as factors contributing to higher prices. Caucasus Auto Import highlights that Georgia's vehicle sector will face challenges in 2026 due to the limited export market diversification, as most exports still go to the Central Asia countries. Sales Director Alexandra Vekwa noted that while exports to countries like Tajikistan have grown, diversification remains a challenge. In 2025, car imports rose about 20%, with re-exports up to 6%. Electric vehicle imports jumped 81%. While first-time electric vehicle registration increased nearly 5%. Central Asia continues to dominate re-exports. Kazakhstan holds 35% of the market, Kyrgyzstan 32%, and Tajikistan 5%. So the last quarter saw a 15 or 16% increase to new destinations. Georgia is emerging as a regional vehicle hub, but full diversification requires expanding to additional markets with targeted marketing and resources. Vekwa also emphasized that the sector remains affected by regional, geopolitical and regulatory volatility. Seasonal trends mean the first quarter is typically slow, while spring and autumn see higher demand. Overall, the 2025 growth trend is expected to continue in 2026. The cheese producer company Chizuka, based in the village of Santa Tsalka district, plans to increase its productivity by 50% in 2025. Founder Vika Yobidze told BMDG that expansion became necessary due to the rising demand. The company also added new varieties to its assortment, including lavender cheese. The demand increased significantly in 2025, making production growth necessary, Yobidze said. She added that production at the farm grew by 30% compared to 2024, but rising brand recognition further increased demand and the company was unable to fully meet it. One factor affecting supply was the outbreak of a cattle disease, which rendered some of the milk unusable despite vaccination. To support the plant production growth, Chizuka plans to import cattle from countries such as Estonia, France and Germany, introducing new breeds adapted to local conditions. Chizuka is a family-owned cheese business founded in 1996. The brand entered the Georgian market 3 years ago, sourcing milk both from its own farm and local farmers. Its producers are available online and in several retail chains, including Fresco.
Commercial banks in Georgia recorded a record profit of over 3.3 billion lari in 2025, representing a 7% increase in net earnings compared to the previous year. Out of 19 commercial banks, 15 ended the year with a profit, while 4 reported losses. According to data from the National Bank of Georgia, Bank of Georgia led the ranking with 1.6 billion lari in profit, followed by TBC Bank with nearly 1.3 billion and Liberty Bank with 126 million lari. The banks reporting losses included Hajj Bank, Paysera, VTB Bank and Silk Road Bank. This week, a high representative from premier global innovation platform and venture capital firm Plug and Play visited Georgia with an intent to find new startups. As the director in the CE region, Ranik Begu, discussed the strategic expansion of Plug and Play into the Caucasus region with BMG. He specifically focused on the launch of their office in Tbilisi, Georgia. Begu emphasized the company's mission to bridge local startup ecosystems with global markets by leveraging their extensive network of corporate partners and venture capital. Begu highlighted that the primary goal is to foster innovation by connecting Georgian entrepreneurs with international expertise and investment opportunities.
Of all emerging markets, what specific unique advantages does Georgia offer to such a global players as its Plug and Play?
We have been monitoring Georgia's growth ecosystem and startup tech ecosystem growth over the years. And in the great partnership with Gita, this was a perfect moment to dive in, as they say, in order to. So there are many elements that I think characterize the Georgian ecosystem and let's say its full potential. Of course, I believe it was mentioned because I'm starting to pick up on some Georgian from Max on the young talent and the people that obviously have done so much and that are continuing to grow. And then it's geolocation. Of course, we're looking at these startups that are aiming globally, that are trying to serve European markets, Asian markets, as well as a lot recently in the Middle East. And having all these elements and the governmental support from Gita in this case, it was a great moment to explore what we can help and how we can synergize with other actors, local actors, in order to lift up and identify those highly potential startups in which we can potentially make investments, connect them with the right partners from our network and other investors as well. At the end of the day, the goal of innovation is to, of course, find new business ideas, but also, as we're living in a very interesting era of development of technology, now lately with AI, we believe that we have to be, even in smaller markets, and identify talent and people in order to find suitable solutions that will help create a better world for all of us. So that's why we're here.
How much Plug and Play connects Silicon Valley companies to these Georgian small startups?
Maybe in order to answer this question, I'll just take a second to talk about plug and play, what it does today. So I think our strongest attribute is our network and our global presence. So it's not just Silicon Valley alone. Obviously, we're in over 60 locations worldwide, covering all continents. We have a platform in which we have partnership with over 550 largest global corporates. We co-invest with some of the top global investors. And then we have over 100,000 startups on our 100,000 startups on our platform. So I think overall this ecosystem and this very unique ecosystem which we have brings great value, especially in small fragmented markets such as Georgia and elsewhere, because it solves the most pressing issue of unlocking the full potential in terms of internationalization and connectivity in reaching larger markets, so to say. And of course, here we're talking about not just markets, but also global partnership with corporates and investments as well. So in this regard, I think while there's been some amazing activities done locally in Georgia, our role is really to take a step further and see who are those promising startups and how we can actually bring support to these startups in order to reach their full potential. So in this regard, we've had very similar stories in Lithuania, Albania, in other countries in the region and elsewhere, which I think have become sort of our unique positioning when we enter these markets. So I believe, based on our first screening of these 43 startups now, we have a great potential to follow up the work with them and really see what we can do. This is the outwards part. The other thing what we can do is definitely we can position Georgia as a local and regional ecosystem in which, with our presence here, we can attract regional startups to come and establish their offices because of the offering that we give, and not just ours, but there's other programs here that are doing great work. And these activities will definitely attract also local corporates to get engaged. And as we have talked with Max and the team here, we're looking and we're making a call for the local SMEs, corporates, to come to us with their pressing problems, their bottlenecks, in order to see how this corporate startup partnership can solve some of these pressing issues, especially now with the development of AI. Many of these SMEs and even corporates will have a challenge to adopt quickly, and maybe sometimes a small team can provide the solution for them. And in order, once we start this dialogue, we will be able to address these challenges in order for the Georgian businesses overall, not just startups, to retain their competitive edge. And then secondly, we're looking to discuss and talk to local investors, because they will be very critical. While we bring Silicon Valley investors, I think it is essential. The first question that they ask is, where are the local investors? Yeah. So once we utilize and we activate, so to say, but also educate, why not? And we co-invest with the local investors, I think this is the moment where we can reach the full potential together.
What would be the most important thing they will get as a startup, as a team of makers of those startups, beyond funding?
It's not maybe a thing, but it's clarity. Oftentimes for startups, clarity is one of the most important things. And sometimes they lose many years, lots of investments, energy, because they miss that clarity. And working with us, talking to potential partners, as they say, fail fast, gives them a clearer idea about what the global markets are. Not just something in their head, but they actually validate or they try to validate their product idea with different partners. And then again, once we have 100,000 on our platform, and we have over 200 scouts who continuously see what's happening around the world, screening startups that are emerging from our hubs, and not only, we can challenge with our mentors, with our scouts, these existing ideas, and ask the right questions, which will give them the clarity. So of course, this is an essential thing for them to advance further and test. But then, of course, funding is a critical component. But as I mentioned, is that global access that we try to offer to them. And then we have over 1,000 mentors that are available for these startups, which is a massive amount of know-how, which is oftentimes in a smaller, fragmented market, very scarce.
And they mostly come from those companies which
absolutely former founders, investors, university professors, corporate innovation personnel, and many of them will come and visit personally in Georgia, but they will also be available through our online activities and as per request for a startup.
The ruling Georgian Dream Party has announced a series of legislative amendments that would impose further restrictions and penalties on recipients of grants and foreign funding. Let us briefly review some proposed changes to the controversial grants law, which already foresees mandatory government approval for donors prior to disbursing local grants. The definition of grant, which will need government approval, is extended to include any funds transferred by any person to any person in monetary or natural form that are used or may be used for activities carried out or to be carried out with the belief or intent of exerting any influence on the government of Georgia, state institutions, or any part of society that are directed toward the formulation, implementation, or alteration of Georgia's domestic or foreign policy, as well as used or may be used for activities arising from the political or public interests, approaches, or relations of a foreign government or foreign political party. The law introduces the concept of a legal entity of another state whose activities involve substantive engagement with issues related to Georgia, and allows such entities to receive grants only upon the government's approval. For example, an organization registered abroad but carrying out activities mostly in Georgia would be required to apply to the government of Georgia in order to receive funding. Kallas said warning of criminal liability for those who do not comply. Funds transferred in monetary or in kind form shall also be considered a grant if in return the grant recipient provides technical assistance in the form of sharing technologies, specialized knowledge, skills, expertise through services and or other types of assistance. According to Kallas, if a foreign power hires experts in Georgia in exchange for money, those funds will be regarded as a grant and require the government's consent. If a representation branch or subdivision of a non-resident legal entity receives a grant, including from the legal entity of which it is a branch, that branch will also require the government's approval. Failure to comply will result in an administrative fine equal to twice the grant amount. Failure to comply with the provisions of the law on grants will result in criminal liability with a penalty of a fine, community service for a term of 300 to 500 hours or imprisonment for up to 6 years. The criminal code will also contain an aggravating circumstance of money laundering with the goal of carrying out activities on Georgia's political issues, punishable by a prison term of 9 to 12 years. It seems external lobbying will be also criminalized. This is the official quote of the ruling party: direct or indirect transfer of money, securities, other property benefits deriving from property or any other advantage to a citizen or legal entity of another state in exchange for carrying out activities on political issues related to Georgia will entail a fine, community service for a term of 300 to 500 hours or imprisonment for a term of up to 6 years. Georgian Dream also introduces an administrative offense for entrepreneurial entities engaging in public political activity that is not related to its core entrepreneurial activities. The violation carries a fine of 20,000 lari, while a repeated offense will incur a fine of 40,000. As of January 2026, Georgia has 294,573 active entrepreneurial entities, including 201,000 individual entrepreneurs and 85,000 limited liability companies, according to official statistics. In total, 1.1 million organizations are registered in the country, but only about 27% currently hold an active status. These figures come as the government prepares to introduce a new administrative offense targeting entrepreneurial entities that engage in public political activity unrelated to their business. Under the proposal initiated by the ruling party, such activity could result in a 20,000 lari fine, doubled to 40,000 lari for repeated violations. It remains unclear exactly which entrepreneurs the restriction will apply to and how public political activity will be interpreted. The State Audit Office would be responsible for imposing the fines under Georgian law. Entrepreneurial entities include individual entrepreneurs, joint stock companies, cooperatives, and various forms of partnerships. Active entities are distributed across organizational forms as follows: 201,000 individual entrepreneurs, 85,000 LLCs, 844 joint stock companies, 165 cooperatives, 117 general partnerships, and 16 limited partnerships. We are supporters of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and press freedom is one of those, said Kallas, the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, before the commencement of the EU Foreign Affairs Council. Kallas was asked how can the European Union support the Georgian people, the media, and civil society amid the passage of laws in Georgia targeting NGOs, journalists, media outlets, and politicians. I expect some of the ministers to also raise these issues, as we have done before. We are supporters of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and press freedom is one of those, so we definitely expect that we'll take steps towards those who are conducting this, Kallas responded. This week's short overview on the economy.
Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze says that although pricing in Georgia is based on free market principles, pharmacy production carries a strong social component, and the government considers the protection of citizens' interests a priority. He made this statement at a meeting of Governmental Coordination Commission on Prices with representatives of 25 pharmaceutical companies. Kobakhidze noted that 2022 introduction of reference pricing already lowered prices for many medicines, and the government now intends to assess whether the list of regulated products can be expanded. He also highlighted significant price differences for non-medical pharmacy items, which in some cases cost 40% more than European countries, raising questions about the justification of such pricing. According to the Prime Minister, business must remain free and costs should generally follow market routes. But in pharmaceutical sector, the government has a responsibility to ensure social interests are protected. If there is a room for improvement, we must act, he said. The Price Coordination Commission, chaired by Kobakhidze, began meetings on January 20. Since then, the Commission has met with supermarket representatives, distributors, and manufacturers, while law enforcement agencies have collected documents from dozens of distribution and retail companies. All pharmacies will be required to stock a certain range of medications. Commercial interests should not influence whether pharmaceutical products are profitable or unprofitable to trade, said Health Minister Mikhail Sarjoladze following the meeting of the Course Governmental Coordination Commission on Food Price with representatives of pharmaceutical companies. According to Sarjoladze, pharmacy chains should acknowledge that the issue of medicine shortages is part of public policy and its regulation is necessary. The so-called essential medications, which are vitally important, should be in the stock of any pharmacy. We will consider how we can protect citizens against such risks. We will need to introduce optimal methods that will practically eliminate such periodic deficits. Regrettably, importers or pharmacy chains sometimes face obstacles in supplying medications. There is a leverage to ensure that in our legislation. However, there is always room to improve the system to evade such shortages, Sarjoladze concluded. Deputy Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development Tamar Yoseliani, together with the General Director of Joint Stock Company Georgian Railway Lasha Abashidze, met with the Chairman of Azerbaijan Railway Rovshan Russamov. According to the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, the meeting focused on cooperation between Georgia and Azerbaijan in the field of railway transportation. The parties noted that Georgia and Azerbaijan are successfully cooperating to increase the competitiveness of Middle Corridor and attract additional cargo flows. Special emphasis was placed on the official launch of Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railway and the opportunities it offers for increasing cargo turnover. It was highlighted that Georgian Railway will have the exclusive right to carry out freight transportation transportation on Maravda-Karzakhi railway section. The meeting underscored that the agreement between Georgia and Azerbaijan Railway is of significance important for national railway infrastructure and regional economic cooperation, as it will enhance competitiveness and strengthen Georgia's transit and logistic potential. Tbilisi's 2026 budget is being increased and will exceed 2 billion and 5 million lari, Mayor Kallas announced at the municipal government meeting. According to Mayor of Tbilisi, the proposed amendments to the Tbilisi City Council's resolution of December 23 titled on approving the Tbilisi municipality's 2026 budget will allocate an additional 296 million lari to the city's approved budget. This year, the capital has unprecedented budget with which we have planned to implement numerous significant projects. However, we said from the outset that the budget would continue to grow during the current months. An amendment has already been made to the relevant resolution of Tbilisi City Council, adding that year's surplus of 17 million lari to the capital's approved 2026 budget. Now another amendment is being made to the City Council's resolution of December 23, 2025 on approving Tbilisi's municipality's 2026 budget, specifically taking into account the transition surplus existing in the municipality budget's accounts as of January 1, 2026, revenues received in excess of income in 2025, totaling 273 million lari, and expected projections for the current year. Consequently, under the proposed project, the overall budget will exceed 2 billion and 5 million lari, stated Kallas. According to his information, taking into account this amendment, allocations have been redistributed to the following priorities: construction and rehabilitation of transport infrastructure, maintenance and improvement of environmental conditions, rehabilitation of buildings, promotion of economic development, development of home workers association, healthcare and social welfare, education, culture, sport and youth, public order and security, Tbilisi's representative and executive bodies. In 2025, Georgia issued 11,578 construction permits, marking a 4.2% decrease compared to 2024. The total official declared area for these projects reached 11.4 million square meters, also down 5.3% year-on-year. According to the GEOS's recently published data on construction permits and completed buildings, over 70% of permits were concentrated in just 4 regions. Tbilisi accounted for 46.2% of planned construction, Kartli 10.1%, Kakheti 9.8%, and Autonomous Republic of Ajara 6.9%. Permits issued in 2025 covered a range of projects including multifunctional residential complexes, commercial facilities, hotels, industrial enterprises, agricultural structures, and other types of buildings. The data reflects a slight slowdown in construction activity while highlighting the continued concentration of development in Georgia's major urban and economic centers. According to GEOS, the average spending per visit by foreign tourists in Georgia decreased slightly in 2025. On average, each visitor spent 2,187 lari per trip, representing a 1.1% drop compared to 2024. Despite the decline in pre-visit expenditure, total spending by international visitors reached 15 billion lari, marking a 5% year-on-year increase. In 2025, Georgia recorded 7.8 million international arrivals, a 6% rise from the previous year. Of these, 6.9 million visits were classified as international tourist trips, also reflecting a 6% increase compared to 2024. During this period, the total number of tourist-type visits reached 5.5 million, representing an 8% increase over the previous year. Russia accounted for the largest share of visitors with 1.3 million arrivals, representing 23% of all international visits. Turkey followed with 17% share, while Armenia contributed 12% of international arrivals. In terms of absolute numbers, Russian tourists made 1.6 million visits, Turkish tourists 1.2 million, and Armenian visitors 0.9 million. The data shows that while individual visitors spending decreased slightly, Georgia's tourist sector continues to grow, driven primarily by the rise in the number of international arrivals and strong interest from neighboring countries.
24 countries have invoked the OSCE's Moscow mechanism on January 29 to launch an expert mission on the deteriorating human rights situation in Georgia, with a particular focus on development since spring 2024. The Moscow mechanism, part of the OSCE's human dimension framework, allows participating countries to establish an expert mission to investigate serious human rights violations in any member country. It is administered by the OSCE's Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, ODIHR. This marks the 17th invocation of the mechanism since its establishment in 1991. The countries that backed invoking the mechanism include Albania, Austria, Belgium, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Canada, Czechia, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Germany, Ireland, Iceland, Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Moldova, Montenegro, the Netherlands, Norway, Slovenia, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and Sweden. The European Union in Georgia continues presenting a video series highlighting the ambassadors of the EU member states to Georgia, sharing their journeys, experiences, and missions. Today, we will meet the ambassador of the Hellenic Republic to Georgia, Maria Theodorou. I will be leaving you off with this video and see you on Sunday. Before that, stay tuned to BMG. It's worth it.
Since my high school years, I was really interested in politics, history, geography, alongside with my passion for traveling, in which I was introduced since my early years. I think diplomacy was like the obvious choice. My name is Maria Theodorou, and I'm the ambassador of Greece in Georgia. Since my childhood, I was reading or hearing about the Greek heroes of mythology, like Prometheus, Amiran in Georgian. It was also history, like the Greek colonies around the Black Sea, and then our ties during the Byzantine Empire, and then when Georgia received the fleeing Pontic Greeks. This was, let's say, the initial point for me to wanting to explore more what is this country. As a young diplomat, I started working at the department dealing with countries of former USSR. So I was really very honored to have prepared the first bilateral visits between Greek ministers and Georgian ministers. So this was, another incentive for me. Definitely when I arrived here at the end of 2021, the climate was totally different. People and the country was eager to move ahead and fulfill the dream of Georgian people as it was stipulated also in the Georgian constitution. I'm really sorry to say that things have changed. Let's hope that this trajectory will change soon enough. Ertad Sakartvelos Vis.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who